On today's show, the Hawks hold serve in some respects, getting a win over the Utah Jazz and snapping a 3-game losing streak. And they did so with great offense and not so great defense. We'll get into how it unfolded, where they struggled, and much more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1946 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday evening into Monday. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, you can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcast. That includes Apple and Spotify. That also includes YouTube. So please like this video and subscribe on YouTube as you are watching this podcast. And today's show, we'll be diving into what became a 147-134 win for the Hawks in regulation at home. A high-scoring affair, obviously, and they do snap a 3-game losing streak. Sorry, 3-game losing streak. And they had lost 5 of the last 6 coming in. So in some respects, the Jazz visiting Atlanta was just what the doctor ordered for Atlanta. The Jazz have been the worst team in the league for a while now. In fact, the Hawks were 13.5-point favorites at FanDuel. That is the largest favorite the Hawks have been in a game all year long. People were asking me before the game, like, how could that possibly be the case? The Hawks are playing poorly right now, and they have been in recent days. They've lost 5 of 6. But the Jazz are a mess, to be sure. They had nothing to play for. They are very bad. They have now lost 19 of the last 20, including today. They've not won a road game. This is a crazy stat since January 5th. It's been 3 months since Utah won a road game. So all that said, the Hawks winning this game is not terribly impressive on its own. They basically did exactly what they were projected to do, won by 13 points in a game they were favored by 13.5 points. So through that lens, it's like, okay, solid enough. I often refer to this kind of game as a taking care of business game. It was that. The Hawks did enough to win, and losing it would have been, basically, this is one of those like all downside games. If you win it, everyone shrugs. If you lose it, everyone panics. And that's the right thing in some respects in this kind of game. With that said, there was a lot of good for the Hawks, and there also was some bad for the Hawks, as I try to give you the entire picture on the podcast, the context, the nuance, and try not to be not always popular, but I just give you what I can find about the games and watch them back and all that fun stuff. So if you're wondering why this is a different setup, audio and video-wise, I am still in San Antonio covering the Final Four. And if you missed it, I did an episode live from the Alamo Dome, actually, on Saturday night into Sunday that you can listen to. Hopefully this quality is a little bit better as it's from my hotel in San Antonio. But I'll be back. Actually, I'll be with the Hawks on Tuesday in Orlando. Spoiler alert, as we'll look ahead to that later on the podcast. But in the meantime, we'll go broad first and talk about the offense. By the numbers, it was the best offensive game of the season. Now, you are grading on a curve to some degree. I will acknowledge that, and I would not say this is the best the Hawks have played on offense all year long when you account for everything, but just purely the numbers, they were the best that they've been all year long for the Hawks. A 144 offensive rating. That means the Hawks scored 1.44 points every possession in the game. That is a ridiculous number. Again, number one of the year for the Hawks here in game 78. That's obviously a pretty impressive number in itself. They scored 147 points, which is the most the Hawks have scored in a regulation game all year long. Second most of any game. The other one that's kind of the season high was an overtime game. So clearly the Hawks scored at will in this one. And they also had their best true shooting percentage. 70.8, I should say, percent true shooting is a season high. And the Hawks shot the cover off the ball in this game. Obviously not sustainable to some degree here, but the Hawks tied their season high with 22 three-pointers. They shot 54% on threes. Only one guy went truly nuts in this game was Vit Krejci, who made 5 of 5. But all 9 guys who played for the Hawks in this game, all 9 made at least 1 3. That's impressive. And no one on the floor for the Hawks shot worse than 2 for 5, 40% from 3. Everyone was 40% or higher. That's not going to happen regularly. And some of that is Utah's defense, to be sure. Some of it's also just the Hawks shooting the heck out of the ball. I like to be consistent and say when the Hawks give up that kind of shooting, I will note that it's not sustainable. When the Hawks shoot this way, they got some good fortune in their shooting today. In particular, Vit, but even guys like LeVert was 3 of 5, for instance. Mo Gay made his only attempt. Dyson was 2 of 4. Not always going to be doing that at the same time, but they all count in this game. And also, Utah shot the ball really well as well, and the Hawks were not sharp defensively most of the game, as we'll come back to later on. But some more offensive stats for you 43 assists for the Hawks in this game. That's a crazy high number. If you're wondering how crazy high, it ties their season high for assists in a game. But this is actually courtesy of Hawks PR. This is the most assists for the Hawks in a non-overtime game. So a regulation 48-minute game. Their most assists since 1993. That's a lot of assists. So obviously, they moved the ball really well, and they made shots. Both the things have to be true when you have that many assists in the game. You got to pass the ball well and make a ton of shots, and the Hawks did both of those things. Also, only 12 turnovers. A really good number there. They had 22 second chance points in this game. Very strong. 24 fast break points in this game. Very strong. And one more time, Utah is terrible defensively. They truly are awful, and they played very small in this game, which made it even worse. But the Hawks were still really good on offense, and there's just not much to complain about at all offensively. They were pretty dominant throughout. Even when the defense was waning, offensively, they scored and scored and scored and scored some more. And can't really be picking that apart too much on the podcast. Now, defensively, it was not good. But here's a stat for you. The Hawks were obviously awesome on offense, right? So awesome, in fact, that the Hawks had their third worst defensive rating of the season in this game. Third worst of the season in game 77-78, and won the game by 13 points. So on one hand, that's how good they were on offense. Also, that's how bad they were defensively. This is their third worst defensive game by the numbers all year long. That's brutal. So 132.7 defensive rating. That's just honestly terrible. Now, part of that is that Utah shot the ball extremely well as well. They shot 20 of 47 from three, including some makes from guys who are not what I would call an elite shooters. So, yes, if you simulated all those shots, just like the Hawks did, by the way, if you simulate all the threes in this game, both teams would have probably made less in a more normal game. But there were some it was not just that by any means. The Jazz shot 63% on twos in this game. That's what 10 turnovers. That's a really low number. The Hawks are usually really good at creating havoc. And other than Dyson doing Dyson stuff, there wasn't too much of that in this game. Only 3 blocks, only 7 steals, pretty pedestrian numbers for the Hawks defensively. Plus, Atlanta allowed 28 free throw attempts. So I don't want to dwell too much on this, but in the midst of obviously celebrating a double-digit win, which is fair to say, the Hawks were in control of this game for the vast majority of the night. I'm not trying to pour too much cold water on that. But they were not good defensively. And this is a team now that's not been playing well defensively for a while. One thing I noted a lot in the first, half of the season was that the Hawks were actually, for a long time this year, it seems like a long time ago now, but for a long time this year, they were actually playing better defensively than offensively. And that was the case by the numbers at that point in time. They were like in the top 16, 17 defensively, and they were in the bottom 10 offensively for a long time. Since the deadline, though, which is about 2 months ago now, when the Hawks changed over their roster a little bit, they're playing, number one, they're playing smaller. Part of that's without Jalen Johnson. Part of that matters, of course. But since then, the Hawks are like 22nd in defense, which is not terrible, but isn't good. As their offense has improved, and it has, they've become more like the old Hawks, where they were able to score at a top 5, top 10 level, but unable to stop anybody. Part of that's personnel based. Again, I don't want to oversimplify that too much, but if you look at the roster right now, it's much more offense leaning than it was even 2 months ago. You add in guys like Niang, guys like even Mann, who's better offensively than defensively in certain matchups. LeVert is a pretty good defensive player, but nothing great. You're just playing smaller, no Jalen. You play more Vit Krejci, who's definitely an offense first player at this point in time. All those things. That's not an excuse. The Hawks were not good defensively in this game, which Quinn kind of acknowledged post game as well. I was able to listen to that, and I think he was saying the right things generally about the way the Hawks were not able to play well defensively, like transition stuff, etc. But they're also choosing, as we'll get into more later on, they're choosing to play small. And when I say that, I mean Quinn and the staff are choosing to play small a lot, and that chooses your offense, also hurts your defense. So anyway, it was not all sunshine and rainbows in this one for the Hawks. They were good overall. They did win this game comfortably, and they were, again, just lights out on offense, but still lots of work to do, and they'll have to be better for sure looking ahead to Tuesday on the defensive end of the floor as they face the Magic in Orlando. All right, more to come on this podcast about the way this game flowed, a playoff race update, as well as player-by-player evaluations. All that's coming up in just one moment. Today's show is sponsored by Monarch Money. Have you looked at your account in recent days and wonder where all of your money happened to go between dining out and online shopping, entertainment? It's easy to lose track sometimes of your finances, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. Monarch Money is your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It is instead a complete financial command center. You track all of your accounts, your investments, and spending all in one place. You actually just stop managing your money, just exactly doing that, and then instead start building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized how much money I was spending on food in general. It's just one example, but now I budget smarter and save more overall. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan your long-term goals all in one place. And managing your money, if you want to, in conjunction with your partner, can be as smooth as ever. You track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all of the stress. Take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year with Monarch Money. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Check it out now at monarchmoney.com. All right, and before we dive back into the game, a look at the playoff race. Again, this is as of Sunday early evening, but the Hawks got obviously a positive set of results compared to what it has been recently when nothing has gone well for the Hawks recently in the standings, both with their own stuff and supporting stuff. They win today, and they're back within a single game of the Magic, who they play 2 more times, so they have control over that potentially. And they're also stayed a full game ahead of Chicago as the Bulls won today, a game that they're supposed to win in Charlotte. But the big one today, beyond what the Hawks did, is that the Kings won in Cleveland. That is great news for the Hawks in some respects, because if you have missed it, the Hawks want the Kings to be in that play-in race and also still ahead of teams like Chicago and Miami because of draft purposes. So I won't do the whole thing now, but the Hawks basically want the Kings to win more than they lose from this point forward to hopefully get another draft pick in the first round of this draft. And the Suns are playing tonight as I'm recording this podcast. But in the meantime, the Hawks are benefiting, I would say, on paper from a Kings win today. All right, back to the actual game. I just want to throw that out there because it was a positive day overall, even beyond the Hawks game. As for the game itself, the Hawks led this game 10-4 to begin the game, and actually only trailed by 2 points was the maximum deficit in this game. It was basically right at the outset. It was 10-4 early on. No turnovers in the first 7 minutes for the Hawks, which is a good sign. Defensively, they were picking up decently early on in this one. I thought Okongwu really all night, but especially early on, set the tone. He, I thought, was pretty brutal actually on Saturday, but was very good in this game on offense. A really nice pump fake and drive from the top of the key that he hasn't shown much of this year. Had a big game by the numbers, also just set the tone in general. And the Hawks were plus 16 in his minutes in this game. The Hawks made also a starting lineup change and moved to George Niang as a starter. Now, if you're listening to this podcast regularly, you will know my point of view on starting lineups, and that's that they don't matter as much as everyone thinks that they do. Not that they don't matter at all, but I think they're just wildly overemphasized. And to me, it was more interesting to see what the Hawks were going to do beyond that. Because honestly, I kind of expected them to change the lineup after the way that these games have gone recently, and the way they handled Mo Gay on Saturday when he played some center in the fourth quarter, all these things. So long story short, I was curious as to how they would kind of align the bench units, because that's been my primary question recently. And some changes here. So first, they had Ricochet be the primary backup power forward early on, which signaled to me which was about to happen. And that was that Mo Gay played backup center in this game. In fact, he only played backup center. So there's a little bit of nuance there. Like, all right, Mo played some center, but he actually was the only backup center, and that's all he did. He played none with Okongwu at all. And it was only Mo for about 11 minutes off the bench when Okongwu was on the bench. And Don Barlow had been the backup center for every game, all 12, since Capella went down. So this is a notable change in the rotation. And Gay did that only in this game. Now, I've been saying for a while, I would actually try them together, and I stand by that. Now, this is a bad matchup to do that because the Jazz played very small. So I understand why they didn't do that today. But I would not close the door on at least trying some Gay Barlow minutes. But again, only one snapshot, but the Hawks actually were -1 in the non-Okongwu minutes, which isn't bad. I think you'll take that overall, but against Utah, you'd hope to you win those minutes a little bit. Anyway, and one thing I will know here, there's some challenges in playing Mo at backup center if you're not going to play Dom at all, and that the Hawks don't really have a lot of size. Now, I would at least try to play at least Niang, if not Ricochet, next to Gay most of the time, but they were playing this lineup at one point in the first half that was Gay with a lineup of Trey, Vit, LeVert, and Mann. I would not be playing Trey and Vit plus Mo at center and no one else at power forward. That's more than a wing. That's too small, in my opinion. And the Hawks basically just, again, did default really small all day today. But I at least want to note that. And I don't know if they'll announce that for sure Mo's backup center moving forward. But He certainly was today, and I think they might lean on that. And by the way, I advocated for Barlow and Gay playing together. I do think that it does make sense, if you're not going to do that, to at least try Mo at backup center, because he is a better defender than Don Barlow. Offensively, I think Barlow is a little bit better, honestly, but defensively, Mo is a lot better. So that's something to keep an eye on. And they've done a little bit in the G League, etc., and it worked fine-ish in this game. The Hawks, though, offensively were just burying shots. They're up by 13 points in the first quarter. And I thought then, honestly, that they might win this game by a lot, and they didn't, because they defensively could not get stops. Keontae George was on a heater for Utah the entire game, 35 points off the bench for the Jazz on like 24 shooting possessions. So he was like on fire in this game. Vit Krejci, though, answered with his own heater. He hit 3 threes in a row early in the second quarter to kickstart a 21-6 run to go up by 20 in the second. And look, from that point forward, the Hawks lost the rest of the minutes. They're up by 20 in the second quarter. So that's a little bit worrisome, but they did win the game, obviously. Defensively, it was rough, but I will share some offensive stats in the first half. I gave you those the broad overall numbers earlier in the podcast, but the first half was totally lights out. 81 points. That's the third time this year they scored at least 80 and a half. They had at least 40 in both quarters of the first half. They had a 162 offensive rating in the first half, and they made 15 threes in the first half. That's their most in any half this year, and it ties the franchise record for threes and a half. So obviously they were just out of their mind in the first half, which is why they were up by 17 at halftime, despite bad defense. Anyway, good fortune there with the shooting. Of course, only 3 turnovers as well, which is a huge positive, which that stopped being the case in the second half, but still a good marker. Now, the second half was not as impressive. They actually lost the second half overall. The Jazz scored and scored and scored and scored. The Hawks had 100 points with 6 minutes left in the third quarter, but defensively, the third quarter in particular was really rough. They allowed 43 points in the third. Utah was, to be slightly fair to Atlanta, playing essentially a 5-guard lineup. Svi Mikhailuk was basically playing center for the Jazz, which is insane. Like Will Hardy is just trying stuff because they're not trying to win, and I get all that. They still played hard in this game, but like they were playing some comical lineups. Micah Potter, they just don't have an anchor to speak of. So part of that is like that's going to lean offensive focused when the Jazz are playing literally 5 guards together. But the Hawks did not get stops. They allowed 11 free throw attempts in that third quarter as they were just a parade to the free throw line. It was pretty lousy defensively overall. Also, Okongwu and Mikhailuk got into it a little bit in the fourth quarter. Okongwu almost elbowed him in the face at one point on a defensive play. The Hawks led by only 8 at one point in the fourth quarter, about 10 minutes to go, but then they went on a 9-0 run to kind of end the game functionally. It wasn't actually over, but they finally got like 5 stops in a row to put the game mostly away. They couldn't run away and hide, though. The lead was still down to 10, actually, at one point late in the game. Utah made 5 threes in a 3-minute span between the 6-minute mark and 3-minute mark of the fourth quarter. But it was never like totally in doubt. The Hawks were able to hold serve from that point forward. One note rotationally that I didn't mention before, I did not like that they did not play Richiche for the final like 10 and a half minutes of the fourth quarter. They went very small. They closed with Mann and LeVert on the floor. Now, Mann and LeVert were both pretty good in this game, so like that's maybe why. Also, Zach was fine. He played pretty well. I would have gone a little bit more size there, perhaps, to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was a minutes thing because it was back-to-back, but still, like I didn't love that, just as a general rule, to play that small for as long as the Hawks did when they were unable to get stops, but ended up winning the game and holding serve. So, broadly speaking, was it anything pretty defensively? Absolutely not. But the offense was totally lights out, which was basically allowed them to win this game in a semi-comfortable fashion. All right, more to come on the player-by-player evaluations in this contest, and there's a lot of good to go around in that spot. First, though, we're from our partners on the show. Today's show is brought to you with Sportsbook, and the NBA playoffs are almost here. FanDuel's giving new customers an incredible way to get on the action with FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel has everything you need in sports betting space, and honestly, it makes anything so easy for you, whether it's picking your favorite teams or diving into player props, from 3-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props as well. Plus, after every game tips off, you can actually combine live prop bets together into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Plus, they have point spreads and totals, game props, future bets, and so much more. And beyond the NBA, they have baseball, they have the NHL, football, college sports, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. And the app at FanDuel is really easy to use as well. When you win, you get paid instantly. Yes, instantly, with no waiting around for your money. Don't miss out. head to FanDuel.com. Check out the FanDuel app right now and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Check it out now at FanDuel.com. All right, so the individual player stuff in this game. 9 guys appeared for the Hawks. All of them played 19 minutes or more, except for Mo Gay. Now, I've noted this already before, but actually it was a DNP for Don Barlow, in addition to Garrison Matthews, Daquan Plowden, and Keaton Wallace of the active players in this game. But Mo played only backup center, 8 points, 3 rebounds, an assist, and a block. He looked fine to me, made his only 3-point attempt. I thought he played pretty well. I do think that it was fine to play Okongwu as much as he did. I think right now the Hawks are kind of in playoff mode, and it was a playoff adjacent rotation in this game. They played 9 guys. I think in the playoffs, they will not play more than 9. They might even play 8 at times in a playoff scenario. So I thought it was like kind of appropriate for that. Mo was fine. And there you go. Terrence Mann, 10 points, did have 4 fouls, 5 rebounds, and an assist. I thought Mann was fine. Not a huge high usage role for him in this game. Only took 5 shots in 26 minutes, but I thought he at least played with good energy. Defensively, not his best work, but that was kind of universally the case across the board from the Hawks in this one. Vit Krejci was out of his mind. He was 5 for 5 from 3, along with 5 assists, 17 points for Vit in 24 minutes. How about this? Vit had the lumbar fracture when he landed super hard on his back and kind of broke his back, basically. Since then, as he came back, he is 30 of his last 53 from long range. That's 57%. Now, that's not going to sustain because no one shoots that. But people were asking me during the game, like, is this real from Vit? This is not real, but I'm starting to believe more and more in Vit being a legitimate plus shooter, because that was one of the questions about Vit, even like a year ago, was that he was not always a good shooter. Unfortunately, his defense has waxed and waned this year, but I think Vit is better against smaller guards, which I think hopefully the Hawks will figure out and try to keep him in that role defensively. But the shooting is playing up more and more, and it's going on right now. So he was really good in this game, very helpful along the way. Karis LeVert was very solid as well. 21 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, only 2 turnovers for Karis. He was +6 in the game, was 4 of 9 on 2s only, but 3 of 5 from 3. I thought Karis was very good, honestly. Defensively, like everybody else, not the best, but I thought he was pretty good overall. George Niang, 6 points, 2 threes, 4 assists for Niang, -1. He wasn't very good, honestly. I thought he made a couple mistakes that were kind of ugly in the first half. He was better than that in the second half of the game, but I don't think that George would probably be super excited about the way he played in this one. It wasn't like he was terrible, but there you go. Richeche, solid 16 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, did have 4 fouls, but no turnovers. He was 4 of 7 on 2s, 2 of 5 from 3. Should have played more, if anything. Again, would have helped their defense if he did play more in this game, but I thought he was very solid, like the way he usually is, and especially because he played 22 minutes, 16 points, finishing around the rim, a couple of nice left-handed finishes as he's been doing all year long. Love that from Zach. Dyson Daniels, 19 points, 6 assists, 3 steals for Dyson, as he's been doing that all year long. He is now the betting favorite for most improved player. We'll see if he wins it, but that'll be fun to monitor in the last week of the season. He now has these stats defensively: 49 straight games with a steal, and is basically shattering every mark of the NBA steal stuff in the last 30 years, basically. He has 3 steals or more in 43 games this year, which is insane. Also has the most total steals in the league already this season since 2003. He's at 223 steals, something like that, which is crazy. He's actually 1 game away basically from being the most since 1996. So he's going to be in some rarefied air here defensively with the steals, but also he was just good overall in this one and was +15 in his minutes. That kind of was indicative, I think, of the way the Hawks played. And when he was on the floor, they did defend better than when he wasn't. Some of the on-off splits in this game are not the most sightly, we'll say, for the defense. But I thought when Dyson was actually playing in the game, they were able to get a lot more stops. In fact, they had a 120 defensive rating with Dyson on the floor, which isn't good, but it's way better than when he was off the floor, which was, I believe, 169 sans Dyson in this game. It was similar for Okongwu. They had a 122 defensive rating with Okongwu on the floor, and it was 157 without him. So basically, when they had Okongwu and Dyson, they were able to get some decent amount of stuff. Not a lot, but a decent amount. Without those guys, it got pretty ugly in a hurry. Speaking of Okongwu, 27 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists. Probably his second best, at least by the numbers, game offensively this year. But his career high scoring is 30 points. He was definitely in range of that, but was 10 of 13 on 2s, 2 of 5 from 3. Good passing, offensive rebounding, finishing around the rim. He was really good in this game after he had really struggled on Saturdays. That was nice to see him bounce back after that. And then Trae Young, 23 points, 15 assists, 3 turnovers, 5 rebounds. He was 4 of 7 on 2s, 4 of 9 on 3s. Trey wasn't like A++ Trey, but was obviously really, really good offensively in this one. Total control of the game from basically minute one offensively for Trey. And the Hawks were scoring at will, basically. Actually, I will say they were actually able to score with Trey off the floor in this game, which was successful. But he was very good along the way. So we'll leave it there for now. But in the end, a taking care of business win. I want to overuse that, but it's basically what this was. It wasn't always pretty. It was high scoring. It was kind of a mess at times, but the Hawks win this one, and they kind of needed to win this one. Now, they have a big showdown on Tuesday in Orlando. Provided the travel gods are kind to me on Tuesday, I am planning to fly from San Antonio to Orlando to be at this game because it's a pretty big showdown. I don't always go on the road, but I want to be at this one, so I'm trying to get there. We'll see. The Hawks, by the way, as a note, the Magic have 4 days off between the games. Yes, 4 full days. They haven't played since I think it was like Thursday. They're just sitting on the sidelines, practicing, getting ready. A challenge there for the Hawks. But right now it's 1-1 in that season series. So this will be a pivotal game, and then the Hawks play the Magic again. 1 week from today is the season finale, Game 82, Palm Sunday at home in Atlanta at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that'll be the showdown for hopefully, if you're the Hawks, you're hoping that's going to be for the division. We'll see. But in the meantime, the Hawks do play Tuesday and then Sunday against Orlando and 2 games in between those games. All that said, that's all I have for you now on today's podcast. Please subscribe to the show. And follow us on social media as well at Locked On Hawks on Twitter/X. I'm at BT Rowland on that platform as well as on Blue Sky. And my Patreon is patreon.com/BT Rowland. One more time, please subscribe to this podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. If you are a video watcher primarily, we appreciate you. Do us a solid and subscribe and download an audio as well to further support the podcast, and the same in reverse. If you're an audio subscriber, just takes 2 seconds, smash the subscribe button on YouTube, get alerted when the show goes live, etc., etc. Thanks so much, everybody. I very much appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your week, the start of your week, really, as things get going on Monday. I may have a show on Monday evening. It will be a TBD as I'm, again, covering the title game on Monday in San Antonio. But in the meantime, I'll be back at the very latest after the game on Tuesday. So stay tuned, and we'll see you all next time.